Am I the asshole for kicking out my friend, who I let live rent-free for 8 months, after his room and bathroom became a biohazard, then telling him, "No wonder your ex broke up with you," in the heat of the moment? For context, I'm 28 and my friend is 24, and about 8 months ago, his girlfriend broke up with him. They were together for 5 years, so it hit him pretty badly. Anyway, I live in a small 2-bedroom apartment, so after thinking it over for a bit, I offered to let him stay with me, rent-free. He still had to pay for his own food, utilities, and anything else he wanted. At first, it was fine. He didn't leave his room and mainly kept to himself as expected. But 6 months down the line, honestly, his room and ensuite are fucking disgusting. His room smells too bad. You can faintly smell it from the kitchen. I just checked his room and he has piles of bags of Uber Eats shit and a literal pile of garbage bags in one corner. Don't get me started on his ensuite. His bathroom is a fucked black mold growing in the shower corners, shower head and window, hair everywhere, toothpaste splattered on the mirror, toilet not flushed sometimes, wet towels left on the floor until they stink. I've slowly started to tell him he has to clean it up and sort himself out more and more as it gets more filthy. Until yesterday when he told me I have to stop nagging him like his girlfriend used to, and that comment got the best of me. I'm not going to lie. Immediately, I got so frustrated and kicked him out while screaming at him about how filthy the place is, and when I threw him out, I screamed, "No wonder your girlfriend broke up with you if you live like this." Honestly, I'm not proud of what I said, but I refuse to enable this sort of lifestyle, especially since it affects my quality of life. Now I'm happy to let him to keep staying here, but I've told him he needs to order a cleaner to clean shit up, or I'm throwing his stuff out by the end of the month. As he was leaving, he told me I'm a terrible friend, and I should have more empathy, and while I do get he is struggling, it's been 8 months and I feel like he is starting to take advantage of me.
Am I the asshole for saying my friend's family would be better off dead? My friend Anne and I grew up in very different socioeconomic backgrounds. Her family always struggled with money, and her inheritance will be one property in her native, developing country, but split between 6 siblings. It's worth maybe £25,000 for context. On the other hand, I'm an only child in a very small but financially established family. Anne had made a few comments about this in the past that I found crude. I never mentioned the financial status of my family, but she became generally aware through neutral conversation. She made comments such as asking specifically what various relatives are leaving me in their wills, if I'm looking forward to getting it. And when my grandmother, the wealthiest family member, became severely unwell, she brought up inheritance again almost enthusiastically. I let it slide despite this disturbing me, as on top of my grandmother being so unwell, I didn't want to fall out with friends too. I decided it wasn't malicious, but simply put it down to our different circumstances. Hearing her upset someone else with this topic triggered me though. Another friend of hers, B, will inherit her father's property in a nice part of our city when the time comes. I was with Anne when B was on the phone mentioning she's going to visit her father later as he's not well. Don't worry, it won't be for long, says Anne. B is obviously confused, and Anne clarifies, I mean, your father will be gone soon, and then you'll get the property. He's really old, so it's not for much longer, then it's yours. B said nothing and just hung up the phone. Anne attempts to justify what she said to me, assuming I'll understand her and feel the same. I do not. She said it's selfish that people even make their children and families wait and should hand over inheritance early, rather than making everyone wait for them to die. That if there's no financial benefit coming while they're alive, then it's better when people's parents die earlier to inherit from them sooner. I said by that logic, your own family are better off dead too. She was confused, and I repeated it. If people have to hand over physical money to earn their right to be considered worth being alive in old age, your own relatives should die quickly so you get your share of their house. She said she finds this very upsetting, as her family is very close and her inheritance is only small, and when she talks about others, it's life-changing amounts in more distant families. Obviously, we've now fallen out and neither of us are changing viewpoints, so... Am I the asshole for what I said?
Am I the asshole for canceling my wedding at 6 a.m. after his coworkers sent proof of a 14-month affair and he texted her after the wedding things will settle down? The screenshot came in at 11:47 p.m. I was in a hotel room in a white robe with a face mask on, drinking champagne with my sister. My phone lit up from an unknown number. No text, just an image. It was my fiancé. In a stairwell I recognized, the one by the parking garage at his office. His hand was on a woman's waist, and her face was turned up toward his, and they were kissing. Not a peck, not ambiguous. The kind of kiss you don't do with someone you're not sleeping with. The timestamp on the photo was 3 days ago. I just sat there. My sister asked what was wrong, and I couldn't answer her. I just held the phone out. She said, "Oh my God," very quietly, and then we both sat in silence for a while. Our wedding was at 2 p.m. the next day. We had 160 guests. My dress was hanging on the back of the bathroom door. His family had flown in from out of state. His mother was downstairs in this same hotel. I texted the unknown number back. "Who is this?" They replied almost immediately. "People who work with him, there's more if you want it. We're sorry. We debated for weeks whether to tell you." More, there was more. I asked for it. They sent 4 more photos, different dates based on the lighting and what he was wearing. Same woman. One of them was taken through a window and they were at a restaurant, his hand across the table holding hers. Both of them laughing. One was a screenshot of a text thread between them, and I could see enough to know this wasn't new. One message from him said, "After the wedding, things will settle down. Just be patient." She had sent back a heart. "After the wedding, things will settle down." I read that sentence maybe 15 times. I called him. He picked up on the second ring, voice totally normal, said, "Hey babe, you nervous? Try to sleep." And something about how calm he sounded made my stomach drop completely through the floor. He had no idea. He was going to walk down that aisle tomorrow and say vows to me, and he had already promised someone else that things would settle down on the other side of it. I said, "Who is she?" Silence. Then, "What are you talking about?" I said his coworkers had sent me photos and I'd seen the texts, and I needed him to not lie to me right now. More silence. Then he said, "Those are old. That was before us. Someone is messing with you." I said, "The text said after the wedding. That's not before us." He went quiet again. Then he switched tactics completely. He said I was overreacting, that I was anxious about tomorrow and I was spiraling, that whoever sent me this wanted to ruin our relationship and I was letting them win. He said, "I love you. Please don't do this tonight. Don't do this tonight," like I was the one who had done something. I hung up. My sister was already looking up the hotel's cancellation policy for the reception venue. I told her to stop. I needed a minute. She put the phone down and just held my hand, and we sat there for another hour while I went through every memory of the last 3 years, trying to find where I had missed it. I called my mom at 1 a.m. She didn't yell or panic. She just said, "Do you believe the photos?" And I said yes, and she said, "Then you know what you have to do." I texted the venue at 6 a.m. I called the caterer. I called the florist. I called the officiant. Every single one of them was kind about it, and I will never forget that. Then I called his mother's room. That was the hardest call. She's a good woman, and she had been nothing but warm to me for 3 years. She cried. She kept saying, "I don't understand. I don't understand." I told her I was so sorry, and I meant it. I told her it had nothing to do with her. He showed up at my hotel room door at 7:30 a.m. I didn't open it. I talked to him through the door with my sister sitting 3 feet away on the bed. He started with anger, said I was humiliating him, destroying everything, doing this based on some photos that didn't tell the whole story. I asked him through the door to tell me the whole story. He said we couldn't talk like this. I needed to open the door. I didn't open the door. He switched to crying, actual sobbing. He said he had made a mistake. It was over with her. It meant nothing. I asked when it started. He wouldn't say. I asked if they had slept together. He said it was complicated. Complicated. I sat down on the floor right there with my back against the door, and I thought about after the wedding, things will settle down. And I said, I'm not marrying you today. And I meant every single word.
Am I the asshole for telling my wife she doesn't look good at her current weight? I, 34, male. I know it sounds bad, but please hear me out before you call me the asshole. My wife, 33, female, had a baby girl 7 months ago, and I'm deeply concerned about her health. Some context is that my wife has a long history with anorexia and was hospitalized for the eating disorder twice. The first time was in high school, and the second time was in law school. I met my wife in college, and so I saw her go through it the second time, and it was terrifying. Basically, what my wife told me is that it isn't about weight or looking a certain way for her. She got sick the first time after her mother died suddenly, and obsessing so much about her weight keeps her mind off the things that were actually bothering her. Before we had our daughter, my wife was doing much better. She ate a normal amount, worked out a few times a week, and didn't weigh herself or make efforts to lose weight. Here's the crux of the current problem. My wife decided to take a year off work to be with the baby. Initially, I thought this was a good idea, but now I think it was a huge mistake. She's home alone with the child all day and has all the time in the world to think about losing the baby weight. When my wife first told me she wanted to lose the baby weight, I figured it was a normal response to having a baby since your body changes so much. But then I noticed the weight was coming off really quickly, and she's now probably 20 pounds skinnier than she was before having the baby. I've noticed a lot of really strange habits. She cooks lavish meals for me and bakes all the time, but refuses to eat carbs during the week and makes herself a different dinner. She's obsessed with fitness influencers and has started rewatching The Biggest Loser for the first time in years. A few months ago, I checked her Fitbit and realized she was moving at least 10 miles per day, which is crazy considering she was with an infant. I asked my wife about this, and she said she just likes going on walks with the baby, and running on the treadmill helps her ease stress from being with the baby all day. She's since suffered from a stress fracture in her ankle and sobbed when she found out she wouldn't be able to run anymore for a few months. She seems to be compensating by eating even less. I've had multiple conversations with my wife expressing concern, but she insists she's just taking care of her body and she has more time to work out now that she's on maternity leave. Whenever I ask if she's okay or suggest she talk to a therapist, she gets defensive and says I'm being overprotective. A few weeks ago, we went to my parents' house for dinner, and my mother looked visibly shocked when she saw my wife. She pulled me aside and told me my wife looked sick. In addition to basically being skin and bones at this point, she's cold all the time, her fingers are blue, and her hair is falling out. It's clear she's not well, but she refuses to acknowledge there's a problem or that any of her habits are unhealthy. Anyways, last weekend was our anniversary. My parents took the baby, and we went and stayed downtown for a few nights. We don't have many opportunities for sex with the new baby, so it's something we haven't done in a while. My wife tried to initiate it, but she looked so frail that I actually got a bit teary, because all I could think about was how she's sick and clearly suffering. I told my wife she's way too skinny and needs to see a therapist because I'm worried sick about her. My wife, once again, accused me of being overprotective and said there was nothing wrong with exercising and wanting to look good after having a baby. I told her she didn't look good at her current weight and that everyone was worried about her. When I said she didn't look good, I meant that it's clear she isn't healthy, but this comment really upset my wife. She was crying and saying I wasn't attracted to her anymore. I told her I was concerned and begged her to tell me what's bothering her so much that she needs to starve herself, and she basically asked why she'd tell me after I told her she didn't look good. My wife has shut down even more and won't have a real conversation with me. Am I the asshole for making that comment? I'm worried I've made things worse.